What I want you to get out of this when we release them is just how slowly they fly, how butterfly-like they fly, how agile they are, and in silence. I want you to be totally quiet.
On the wintry back roads of western Montana, a group of people have converged in search of long-eared owls. Their guide is Denver Holt, a wildlife biologist who runs the Owl Research Institute in the Flathead Valley. The visit offers a rare opportunity to observe these birds while learning about techniques used by wildlife biologists in gathering information about the ecology of the long-eared owl. This film combines two separate field trips, one sponsored by the Montana Audubon Society, the other sponsored by the Montana Natural History Center.
So here's what we're going to do. First of all, again, you can never ever come back here. And second of all, you can just see this little patch here. Real typical of habitats that you don't think are very important for much, but for long-eared owls in particular, this is a very important winter habitat and sometimes a breeding habitat. This is an area we kind of refer to as the truck stop, and why we call it that is because there's such a high turnover here of owls. Whereas the other areas around Missoula, once the winter roosts are established, usually in October, so they're pretty much stable throughout the winter. But here there seems to be a pretty high turnover. One day you can come in and trap 5 owls and band them, come in and then return a week later and catch 5 more, and none of them are banded. They're the only 5 in there. Or, you know, sometimes you will make some recaptures in here. So anyway, but there's usually a high turnover in here. What's going on in the Missoula Valley this year is we have a lot of voles, same thing in the Flathead Valley or the Mission Valley. And we've been trapping voles for a number of years, and this is as high as 1990, which I think was the highest year I've ever had. And it's reflected in the numbers of hawks and owls which are around. The Missoula Valley hasn't been very high for the past few years. We haven't had much breeding activity till this past summer, and high winter numbers in a long time. We've had, on the Christmas count, I think about 45 long-eared owls just here in the Missoula Valley, which includes this little roost here, and hopefully there's a few birds in here. It's all driven by voles, so if you see small mammals running around while you're standing here, particularly little brown things about that big, those are the voles. Some people call them field mice. They're a little different from mice that typically look like Mickey Mouse, but that's what's driving these populations of long-eared owls. So when there's a lot of voles around, there's a lot of owls. In roughleg, it's the highest numbers of roughlegs I've seen probably since 1990 as well this year, in the Missoula Valley as well as the Mission Valley. Again, it's going to be standing around waiting for us to do our job. You probably will see some owls floating around once we go in there. The owls are obviously going to see you. They can hear me and all that right now. What I'm afraid might happen is that they'll see us over here and they'll get real high. There's not a lot of area for them to peel off and go to. They could fly over there. If they do, we might just leave them alone. But they'll just jump back and forth from this patch to the patch right on the other side. It is harassment. I want to tell you that right now. I mean, wildlife research is harassment. And so we are harassing these owls, and we just hope that the information that we get is going to be good for them in the future should we need to do anything like have management recommendations or something like that. But it is a degree of harassment. We've tried to measure the harassment. I've had cardiac surgeons out here and cardiologists out here looking at heart rates. The heart rates when we're handling these birds are up at 400 to 500 beats per minute. The problem is we don't have a control or something to compare it with, a resting heart rate of an owl just sitting naturally out there. But we've taken it another level, we've taken blood. And so we take the blood and then we can look at the stress hormones, which is the corticosterone. And we have found that when we're handling these owls, even though they're sitting there, they look calm, that their stress levels are rising quite a bit. We can get a basal level if we take blood within 5 minutes, preferably 3, and that'll give us our basal rate. And then we'll take blood at 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on how long we're handling, and their stress levels or their corticosterone levels constantly rise. So they're definitely stressed out. If we get some owls, and again, there's no guarantee, minimize your movements, and then we'll talk a lot about them. We're going to try to get a couple, so I'm going to be running back and forth with Rob here, trying to catch some owls. They're going to be floating around. We're going to race to the net. A few more are going to flash, I hope. Let's just hope they're in here. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of activity. You have to live with it, though. All right, and And it is. It's bothersome to the birds. But anyway, so we're going to start, and you just got to keep quiet and keep as close together as possible. I'm going to show you just briefly a demonstration in the net. We have a net set up there in the vegetation. These are called mist nets, M-A-S-T-N-E-T. And these mist nets, you can see, are pretty obvious when they're out here alone, just standing in the open air. But we put them in the vegetation. If there's some vegetation behind them, the owls tend not to see them. And so they'll fly into the nets. And the way it works, can I use your head? I'll give it right back to you. The owl cruises down. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, the owl's cruising through, and it just falls in a bag like that. When we approach the net, we have to figure out which bag it's in. And then, just from years of experience, we'll look, figure out the bag, reach in, try to get the owl wings in a natural position. We're afraid of straining. You know, you get a pinched shoulder or a pinched nerve once in a while. That has happened about 10 times in the last 12 years here. And they can't fly for about an hour or a day or so. We used to keep them overnight. Now we just put them back in the vegetation and we retrap throughout the winter to find out that they're okay. This study's been going on for 12 years. We've marked over 700 birds between the long-eared owls I'm talking about. Thank you. Between the Missoula Valley and the Mission Valley, we found over 130 nests. We study them year-round. We band them, weigh them, measure them, do a few other things, try to get some information on their life histories. One thing that's neat about these long-eared owls, and if you see some birds coming up, there's not a lot of species of owls in the world communally roost. And that's what we'll see in here. Is these owls will come together during the wintertime and roost communally. There's several theories as to why. Information hypotheses is one that a lot of people believe in, where they can exchange information maybe on the best hunting grounds and they can all go over there and hunt. I don't know if that works. Predator vigilance is another one, perhaps. All these eyes sitting around can monitor potential threats. We rarely find them killed by anything, so maybe that doesn't work. And then on and on and on. There's a lot of theories. But one thing that we have seen recently is that mating opportunities come out of these communal roosts. And so we know that they're males and they're females. And I initially started this study because I thought that all these owls in here might have been family groups, related groups. And now through the banding, the marking, the recapture, and genetic analysis, among other things, we know that they're not family groups. But is this group a little more closely related than the group 5 miles away, than the group 2 miles away, than the groups that are in the missions? So that's another level that we can look at. And that's how this all started. And now we follow them year round. Any questions before we get started?
Where do they nest?
Where do they nest? They nest in old magpie nests. And I'm not going to bring you in there because there's too many of you. But there's magpie nests scattered throughout these hawthorn thickets and willow thickets. And the long-eareds, as most owls, they don't build nests, they just kind of take over the nest.
When do they start, Denver?
They start nesting, it depends. On a good bull year, they will breed in February. And it's not uncommon, it's not reported in the literature, but it's not uncommon for them to start breeding in February, particularly up in the Mission Valley. Generally, however, the mean would be about the second week of March. These winter roosts will break up, depending on the bull numbers, middle towards the end of February and into early March, and then they'll spread out and pair off and breed. Yes.
How wide is the hunting range of a specific owl, an individual owl?
How wide is the hunting range is a question. It's really difficult to tell. With long-eared owls, transmitters have shown anywhere from 75 to 400 acres. But it's all dependent on the density of small mammals. And so if you have a lot of small mammals, and I don't think that's really a good measure to do that only 1 year. You really need to do that multiple years to get a good measure of their home range, territories, etc. Okay, Rob and I are going to go work now, so just hang in there, keep tight, please keep quiet. But if you have binoculars, use your binoculars, and you'll see the long ears floating around. Yes, ma'am.
Can I come?
My wife wants to join us. No, you can't, sorry.
I want to come.
No, because too many people will get them high. Just hold on a second. Yeah, but please, be nice. You have to stay here.
Oh, look at a whole bee of owls.
did you see?
Wow.
Alright. Well, we got some. Decided. Now, you see this fence, huh? I know this is neat and all that, but you can sit here and marvel at it for the moment. We still have a little bit more work to do. So we're going to continue to go through the brush and catch some owls. This is a long-eared owl, as you know. I won't tell you much about the adaptations until we get a couple more. Here are the tufts. They have nothing to do with hearing, but this is how it gets its name, long-eared. But the ears are actually behind the facial disc. So we'll go over all this stuff soon.
He is banded, actually. So this will be interesting to see when and where.
Now, will you take blood or anything from him?
No, not today. No, we don't.
You're just banding today?
Yeah.
What's that?
You're just banding today?
Yeah.
These are adults.
Well, we're going to try to figure that out, and we'll show you from there. But we do have to go back in for another pass. So, Lynn, do you want to come hold one, please? Now, if for some reason the owl's standing, gives you a hard time, it bites your blown face or it claws you, just hang in there until I get back. If for some reason you get in trouble, there's the net. And if it's going to get away, just send it into the net and we'll be out in a second. Rob, let me hand it off.
Is that your assistant?
Yeah. This is really good. Been hammered before.
There is no doubt that females are nastier than males. And we will show you that. Hopefully today, Lynn, can come on. Lefty or righty? Firm but not too tight. You can hold over here like you want. Now, if you get in trouble, stay near the net. And if you get in trouble, there's the net. So you guys can back up to the net. If it, for some reason, it gets away, or it's going to, send it into that net. So you guys just back off to the net. Or you can walk over there. Okay, again, it's cool out, I understand, but just hang in there, and we need a little bit more work, and we'll be back, and then we'll go over stuff. Lynn?
Yeah?
Don't bring it near anybody, please. Just stay there.
Tried.
Oh, good. Don't move. I love it. Must be a boy. It's very nice.
No, it's a girl.
It is a girl. Let me get back.
Excuse me.
Isn't she a beauty?
She's been born there. That's what Rob said. That one's
Look at those eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see? Okay.
Yeah.
She's swing one side and then the other.
Pretty deep. There's nothing in there. It's snowberry, cherry, chokecherry, sharp. They're in these chokecherry patches. I will show some.
It's okay.
I have not seen very many like these. Yeah, that's what two guys like.
The big wings. I don't know whether this one's.
Yeah. Nothing.
Where is...
Hanging out.
Back up a little, please. Yeah, you can, you can let it... Yeah, you can just hold it with your hand. Okay, that's all right. Yeah, firm but not too tight. You don't have to put it, your hand over its back. It'll settle down. If they flap, it's okay. Okay, I'll be right back.
I was looking at that. Yeah, you and me. Lynn looks so great still.
So yeah, I'm something. Yeah. I just had Frank.
I never cooked it.
I think you could get a few pictures of it. This looks like competition for this long-eared owl of 1999.
Yes, they have nets.
Still, I never even seen. Even I wanted to use it in a classroom situation, but we can't even keep them. It's nice to know those nets don't hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
I know. You have to give it over to fish at the end.
How you guys doing with your birds, okay?
She'll know that you're right.
Oh, yeah.
So I think
She
you
will.
need to do that. This is pretty special, so I think you need to tell about this.
Long-eared owl, as you can see, right here. Very little owl. Open country specialist, you know, if you see harriers out in the daytime quartering out over the grasslands, that's what the long-eared owl does at night. Forages out over the grasslands. It's an open country species, although it nests in vegetation. Probably nests up in the forest and edge of clear cuts and in areas where there's easy accessibility to open habitats to hunt. Very long-winged owl, fairly long tail, real indicative of a species which inhabits open country. Small though. I mean, when you see them fly, they look large, but in the hand here, they're quite small. This looks like, I don't know, buffy-looking male here, maybe. Males during the breeding season weigh about 270 grams. Females weigh about 340. So, you know, 454 grams to a pound. So think of that. You're dealing with a bird that's between a half, 3/4 of a pound. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to kind of go through some of the things here. It's going to be difficult, and I'll try to walk up and down and show you. Some of the neat things I think about owls, which fascinate me, is just their adaptations to, you know, somewhat nocturnal habits. Not all species are nocturnal, but these long-eared owls are quite nocturnal. They're out foraging just about exclusively at night, and that's why they just haven't been seen. When I came to Missoula in the late 70s, early 80s, I don't think the long-eared owl was ever reported in the Christmas count. And if it was very rare. And the first year I was out running around the brush here, I had 19 long-eared owls. And if you knew Dr. Wright, he would say, "Oh, are you sure they're a long-eared owl?"
Yeah, he would.
But I did all Dr. Wright's collecting and identifying for the last 15 years. And so anyway, he believes it. Anyhow, so we consistently lead the nation in the numbers of long-eared owls found on Christmas counts, and that's only because I'm one of the few people who's crawling around the bushes all the time. You know, the people that work with me. So anyhow, here are the tufts. What these owls were doing when we were walking up the road here, all of us, is they all got alert. They were just sleeping. When they were sleeping, they're just resting like this. The tufts are down. They're in more of a kind of an oval posture, and they're just tucked up, resting. However, when there's a threat, like us walking around, they'll raise these tufts up. They'll take a more compressed body posture, so they'll compress the plumage real tight to the body here. They'll put these up. They'll raise these white eyebrows and these bristles around the bill, and they'll just sit there really tall and thin, try to monitor the threat. These tufts here will mimic the twigs within the vegetation. Even the coloration on them may mimic flicks of light or snow or bark or lichen. And then you can see its back coloration, the camouflage coloration, it tends to look more like bark that is evolved. Most of the species of owls sit tight and let the threats or the potential threats just walk on by. But they're always monitoring. So anyhow, in short, the tufts have nothing to do with hearing. They're just for camouflage. They take on these postures and this behavior of sitting still and letting the potential threat pass, which over the years, I know all their tricks, so they can't get by very often without me finding them. But the ears are behind the facial disc. And for a moment here, you kids think of this too. And long-eared owls are in long-eared owls, the ears are asymmetrical. And that just means one ear is higher than the other. So if we went around and pulled everybody's left ear off and raised it up a quarter of an inch, that's what it's like in the long-eared owl. So the left ear opening is higher than the right ear opening. So the left ear opening will be up here, and the right ear opening is down here. Not all species of owls have that. In some species, the right ear is higher than the left, but it tends to be a character of owls that are in northern climates, particularly deep, dark northern forests with lots of snow and a lot of canopy, which prevents a lot of light from coming in. But also in some of these open species, like short-eared and long-eared owls, that have to forage in tall grasses like this. If you think about an owl foraging through here like that, can it really see a small mammal running through here? So what it will use is acoustical cues as well as keen vision to locate prey. What this asymmetry of the ears allows these owls to do is calculate, like we can, on a horizontal plane. So we can tell it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there. Where we have problems with a real fine resolution is if it's at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. By having asymmetrical ears, these owls can calculate the horizontal plane and the vertical plane simultaneously in just, okay, and go in there and capture the sound source, or hence the small mammal. Provided it has high-low frequencies, which just rustling through brush or under snow can. And some of these owls, like the great gray owl, can actually dive through several inches of snow. They can hear the small mammals through the snow, and they'll plunge dive, and they'll grab it. It's really quite neat. So what about owls that have symmetrical ears like us? Their trick is quite simple. They just have to tilt their heads up and down, and they have to calculate vertical, then they can calculate horizontal, they calculate vertical, then horizontal. But it's a good trick for you to know in the future.
Yeah.
You see how big they look?
Yeah, they look big.
See that flight?
He's not going where he's
The owl see primarily in black and white. So you see all the colors here? My reds and oranges and blues and purples and pinks and all that. The photoreceptor cells in owls' eyes have a high rod to cone ratio where we have a high cone to rod ratio. And that just means that there's specific oil droplets on these photoreceptor cells that enhance our color vision, and the owls don't have that. They have color photoreceptor cells, however, you need light to have color, and if you're primarily nocturnal, you're not going to get that color. In laboratory experiments, the tawny owl, some species of owls, can maybe detect a little bit of color, but really doesn't have much function. So they primarily see in black and white. Just think about that at night. As soon as we lose the light, we'll lose all our colors here. Well, all owls haven't been tested, however. You know, maybe there is some owls like diurnal owls, like the snowy owl, perhaps, that might see more color vision. But for the most part, owls see in black and white or shades of black and white. Another neat thing. So we've got hearing, vision. Let me go back to hearing. These facial discs here. Just think of a satellite dish and funneling radio waves in. This facial disc here, when these owls are in high alert and they're foraging, the facial disc really stands out. What seems to be happening, or what we think is happening, is just sound sources are really amplified and just sent back into these ears for fine resolution and where the sound source is coming from. And a lot of bird feathers have a sensory corpuscles at the base of the feathers called Herb's corpuscles. And it hasn't been proven, but some people think that this may help enhance where the sound source is. And the owls have these modified semi-plumes on their face or bristles on their face. All right, silent flight. Owls supposedly can fly silently. What I'm going to show you here, can you see the fringes? If you had a pocket comb right now, and you pulled your pocket comb out, little fringes right along the leading edge of that primary there. That comb. You see those fringes? Let me just walk it by so everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Vortex
Right on that
generators.
end primary, those little fringes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? See those fringes? Okay, then, we'll talk about the fringes first. What those fringes allow the owls to do, just think of those geese were flying over, if there were some ducks flying over. You can hear the whistling sound because the vein on the individual feathers is continuous. And the barbs just run right out and they're tucked. A lot of barbules would hold it together right towards the tip. It's a continuous vein. These fringes, and they're just modified barbs, what they are, what they allow to do when the owl flies, those fringes just slice through the air. They soften the air. Flight creates aerodynamic noise. And the owls, what they do here is they soften that noise by just slicing through it. And so as the boundary layer of air passes over the wing and each individual feather, it's just softened first. Then, the owl feathers, as you've probably heard, are very velvety or very soft to the touch. And there's this velvet structure along the feathers, the surface of the feathers here. Those are modified barbules which rise up from the feather itself. What that does too, that also muffles the air as it passes over individual feathers. It also reduces friction noise as the feathers pass over each other during flight, further reducing aerodynamic noise. And then as finally, when the air tails off individual feathers in the entire wing, the ends of these feathers here have no hooklets on them again, so it's not a continuous vein down here. And that suppresses perhaps more sound and flutter noise as air moving over the surface of the wing and air moving under the wing meet back here. Potential flutter noise is suppressed by the softening feathers there. Again, all that does is that reduces owls, not all species, but in the species that have it, and that reduces the amount of aerodynamic flight noise they create down to the ultrasonic level, which we can't hear it. So we probably can't hear this owl fly, but small mammals can hear that ultrasonic level. So there's probably individual small mammals that can detect owls and some that cannot, and some owls are successful and some that aren't. But that's what it does, it reduces it down there. So that allows the owls two things. It allows them to hear in flight and make adjustments, and also to reduce detectability.
Denver,
Yes?
does each one of the primary feathers have that leading edge, or is it just the leading primary?
That's a good question. Does each primary feather have that? No, it's really neat. The way it's evolved is just where it's needed. The first
Just
feather,
the first one.
and then as you see the first feather, P10, is shorter than the second one, P9. But you see, if you look closely, the very tip of the second feather has the fringes. It almost it picks it up. The whole three-quarters of it doesn't have it. And then just where it extends beyond the first feather, or P10 there, it picks it up there too as well. And sometimes you can see it on the third one. Usually the first one, a little bit of second, very rarely the third. But species of owl, like a northern pygmy owl, for instance, they have very, very reduced lengths and numbers of these barbs. And think of it, they're a pigeon hunter, they hunt by day, maybe they don't have to be silent. 50% of their diet's birds. Snowy owl, you wouldn't expect it. You compare snowy and a great horn, similar sized owls. And the great horn's got real long barbs, and the surface area, the friction barbules, is very high. And you take a snowy owl, and it's got very short barbs. They're widely spaced, you can actually count them. And the surface area of the barbules, or the velvet area, is reduced as well. So when we group owls morphometrically like this, and some other characteristics, which I have a student working on now, and it's like snowy owls and pygmy owls and hawk owls are falling out over here, long-eared owls, short-eared owls, boreal owls are falling out over here, and then there's some habitat features as well mixed in there. Questions as we keep
Could
going?
you
Yes?
bring the owl back on and see the fringes?
Okay. How you guys doing? I told you it'd be long. It's a lot of standing and cold. Sorry. Yeah, it is pretty neat.
I have one question.
Yes.
Since the ears are uneven, is the facial disc uneven?
Is the facial disc uneven since the ears are? As far as I know, it's not, but I don't think so. But I never really thought of that. Is the facial disc uneven? I don't think it is. I think it looks like a, it's either half moons or almost a total circle in some species, but as far as I know, no. No one's looked at that.
Denver?
Yes.
Pardon me, I see the one, yours is banded. Are they all banded, or?
No, one is banded, and Yeah, mine is. So we got a little history on it. That's one of the neat things about banding. I'll just move into it from there. We will band these too. So this has got a band on it, and now we have a little history. Maybe we caught it a week or two ago.
He seems like
who knows? Maybe we caught it a year ago.
he's like more
Every once in a
relaxed.
while, we do encounter some of the birds that we banded. But by having the history on it, you know how you look at catching any. Hey, why don't you forget it?
There goes one.
I forgot about. Yeah, put the net up.
You forgot about them. He's leaving. Yeah, he looks like he's had enough.
Look at how big. All right, look at that. See the flying there? What I want you to notice in that flight, you know, of course everyone talks about the moth-like flight, but another thing which is so unique about owls is they have, of all birds in the world, they have some of the lowest wing loading values. And what the wing loading typically is the body mass divided by the wing area. And owls tend to have a light body mass for the size of their wings. And then there's another thing called an aspect ratio, and that is the wing area divided by the chord, which is the bend of the wing to the tip of the primary hair. And both of those measurements are the lowest of groups of birds in the world. What that allows these owls to do is to fly very slowly, like you see. They can stay just above the stalling speed because they have a high wing surface area. Very, very agile. They're extremely agile. And that being able to fly slowly like that enhances their agility and their coordination, so they make quick turns. Also, flying slowly reduces noise created by flight as well. So that further, just brings that down as well. Think of a great gray owl. It's got a huge wingspan and a huge breadth to the wing. And it can just move slowly and fly very slow through forests and vegetation because of that high wing area to the body mass. Okay, now where was I going? Banding. Yes, sir.
How about nesting? Who is it? Male and female pair off? Who incubates? That kind
Okay.
of thing?
All right. Banding and nesting. We'll start with nesting and we'll the banding stuff. I'll just give you the whole thing. Starting in the winter time. So these groups come together in the winter. They're in the communal roost. What's going to happen here in another month or so is they're going to break off and pair. Let me see if I've got a female bird there. Well, no. They're going to pair off. Females are larger than males. If you need to know that, we don't go into any reasoning right now. And then they'll start occupying or hanging out near magpie nests. And so at these magpie nests, you'll usually start flushing 2 birds. Then all of a sudden one day you go there and there's 1 bird, and you start working the nest over and you can see them in the nest. Females alone, they lay the eggs, they alone incubate and brood the young. Males provide the food and hang out. They both will defend the nest, but that's also an individual issue. Incubation, I don't know if you need to know that, it's about 25 to 30 days.
How many eggs?
What's that?
How many eggs?
About 5 eggs. The average over 12 years I've been studying is about 5 eggs. And it doesn't vary much. Given that their numbers vary so much with the fluctuating bowls, their egg numbers and their clutch size don't vary as much as I thought. I think the largest one we've had is 7, but something like a short ear we've had, 10, 11 eggs in a nest. But anyhow, every year you can go into some of these areas and in the wintertime catch these owls. And then you go in there in the breeding season and these nests are occupied year after year. And you would say, hey, my owls are back, or the same owl was here. But by banding these things and marketing them like we've done, we have found that 90% of the birds are new birds every year. The exact same branches are occupied in the winter roost. The exact same nests are occupied every year. And 90% of the birds are different birds every year. So that kind of tells me that they're just hardwired for specific habitat features. It also says that maybe they're just a big nomadic population that moves around, but maybe they're not nomadic. Maybe they know the country from British Columbia all the way down to Idaho Falls or somewhere. Maybe they do know all that country and they just move around and stop where the bulls are, but that still doesn't explain why you still have 90% of them turn over each year. So anyhow, what's that?
How long do they live?
How long do they live? I don't know that yet. In the wild, I think, here we've had 1 7, but most of them disappear after 2 to 3 years. And I think there's one in Europe which is right around 9 years old or so. So I'm going with the nesting. Anyway, those that do show any site fidelity, which are very few, but they tend to be males. So males come back to the natal site to breed if any of the sexes do. It tends to be males. They'll breed, they'll have, their mating system is a seasonal monogamy. There's some tribes that polygyny, or bigamous males once in a while, they don't seem to make it. But males occasionally do come back to the areas, but never mated with the same females. And one example, we've only had 2 females that have been within reason of the study area over the 12 years. And male and female bred one year. They raised 5 young. Next year, the male was back. He had a different female. We found the female, the old female, breeding with another male, and their 11-month-year-old son breeding. And that was the only time we had so much neat information just in one season. And that's what it takes, is constant, marking and recapturing. But one of the ideas for divorce is supposed to be that perhaps one of the parents is not a good provider, the male's not a good provider, the female's not very good at incubating or being a mother, etc. Anyhow, they raised 5 young. The following year with their new mates, after they divorced, they raised 5 young again with their new mates, both of them, and their son raised 4 young in his first year of life. So, anyhow, I can't tell you any more of their mating system other than very rarely do they return to the same area, and if they do, they never mate with the same female, because few females, only 2 in 12 years, over 700 birds, have ever come back to the same area as far as breeders. And that's very general when I say the same area. Only about 15 males have done that.
That's good for genetics.
I don't think there's a genetics problem at all if it's fly all over the place. I wouldn't think so. Like Fred would probably say. Anyhow, so that's their breeding season. Now, care, parental care. All right, so females alone incubate, females brood. At about 3 weeks old, the young will branch out. They still can't fly, and they'll just branch out. It means they jump out of the nest, they're hanging on branches, they fall down, they climb up. They're very capable of walking around the ground and then figuring their way back up in the trees when they fall. And so this is what happens. It's kind of neat. It's only through mark recapture that we've been able to figure this out. Is that at about 3 weeks old, when the young leave the nest, it's another three weeks or so before they can fly. So let's say they're flying at 5 or 6 weeks, a little bit. Male and female continue to bring food to the young at this time. Then at about 8 to 10 weeks, the females leave. That's it. They abandon their mate and their young. Most of them never to be seen again. They just leave. At about 10 to 12 weeks, the males just leave. The young are hanging out there. They may hang out for a couple more days or a week, and then they just disappear. And that's how it works. Then a communal roost is formed in the winter time. There's some movement. A communal roost is formed, like we have here, and it starts all over. Hey, what happened? How come you guys didn't catch anything?
We had lunch.
Interesting things going on as well. So I think students of it really wouldn't call it cycle today. This is a pellet, and you're all familiar with owl pellets, I'm sure. If not, I'll briefly tell you what it's all about. Is, birds have 2 stomachs, an upper and a lower stomach. Anyway, the owl catches the small mammal, swallows it down, oftentimes whole, and then right here in the upper stomach here, the proventriculus, they'll digest the meat. Now, owls don't have the digestive enzymes or the strength that, let's say, hawks do. So the acid level isn't quite as strong as in the hawk, so they don't digest bone very well. It can be anywhere from 6 to 12 hours later when it's regurgitated. We collect these by the thousands. We've identified, we've probably collected 50,000 of these in Missoula and the Mission Valley over the last 12 years. But anyhow, what we're looking for is the skull. Now there's a lot of bone in there, and it's similar. We have the same looking femurs and pelvis and humerus and radius and all that stuff. But just think of this. Here's what we want. So if for some tragic reason we all instantly were incinerated here and people couldn't identify us, they would look at our dentition, hopefully, and check dental records. They could tell who we are or who we were. Anyway, with these guys here, what we do is we try to get the skulls, and then we're going to look at their dentition. We're going to particular characters of molar number 2 is what we're interested in. So for us, it's real easy just to take out molar number 3 and discard it. See, doesn't it? Yeah, then take your binoculars and turn them over. It's a fine field microscope for anything, insects, or etc. And we can look right down here. And that is, looks like a metal vole. And so there's 2 species of voles which occur here. One called the metal vole and one called the montane vole. And the characteristic is our molar number 2. So already we know everything about the area, so we just know the 2 voles to choose from. But if you had to do it, you would use a key. And we just know at the posterior end or the back end of M2, there's a little loop on it. And that little loop tells us that's the metal vole. And the little owls tend to toot, the big ones tend to hoot. And that's all kind of just general distribution. So what's the long ear do? Yeah, it's like this. Where a pygmy owl does. And a sourd owl goes. But everything is low frequency. And low frequency sounds that these owls have evolved, they tend to carry a lot further. You know, high frequency sounds like a warbler go, they attenuate very quickly, so their traveling distance is very short. But these low frequency sounds, they tend to bounce around vegetation and carry out a long way. And that may be something you have to do at night. It may be that these owls are widely distributed, not very close, you know. Yeah, I don't know why, but sounds have evolved to meet habitats and to work in habitats and travel through habitats. So the owls, particularly the forest owls, they tend to have low frequency sounds. And they're given at low frequencies. You know, these days everybody's out there with a big ghetto blaster, you know, surveying for owls when you don't have to. All you have to do is imitate the sound yourself and keep it at low frequency. They can hear it. They have great hearing. Try to get focused. Yeah, that's it. Firm it, not too tight. Don't let it pull its feet up in here. And if it bites, you blow in its face. If you get in trouble, throw it in the net. And, okay. Owls have a lot of vocalizations. I mean, a ton of different vocalizations. These long-eared owls, although their primary vocalization during the breeding season, we believe it's males trying to attract females. That's what everything's about usually. And but outside of that, when you're working at the nest, they'll come in and they'll go. They'll fall on the ground. They'll be doing this and faking wing injuries and screaming and bill clacking. You heard that earlier. And they'll hoot, and they'll go, ooh. You know, they'll just do a variety of things. Sometimes leave an attack, but very, very rarely. So all the owls have this variety of hoots and toots. Then the screams, hisses, barks, and then the young also have these other things, these screeches, and it's usually food begging calls where they sit around and go, rah, rah, you know, just bumming food. So, yeah, there's a lot of vocalizations going on, but the primary ones are the ones that we usually teach people because that's the ones that usually during the mating season that you tend to hear. These are the bands.
Get dry.
And you have to be licensed with the feds to do this. It's not a big deal to make it sound like a big deal. And you just have to have, you know, eventually you get this thing called a master permit. Anyway, they're all numbered, and you're responsible for the numbers and your records, etc. So you band these birds, take your measurement data, record anything that perhaps is abnormal, and send the records in, and it's all on computer file. So if I wanted to get a file of every long-eared owl's been banded in North America and analyze it for something, then I can just call the banding lab and order it, and they'll send me everything. There are what they call butt-end bands and what they call lock-on bands. The butt ends are just the circular ones like this that just come together as a butt. And the lock-ons have this little flange, which you flip over, and it has been believed and shown in some of their larger birds of prey that they can pull these off. But these here tend to be on for life. And even with the eagles, they'll even rivet some of the bands for eagles. So, we'll band the bird here. Okay, Jen, how you doing there? Is that a comfortable hold? Okay. All right, I'm going to go in here, and I always band on the left foot. Remember, the ankle is way up here. The birds have these fused metatarsal bones down here. So you want to go below the ankle. You don't want it to slip above the ankle or go down over the feet. So I'll just kind of lay it in here, squeeze it off. I kind of rotate it around a little bit to get the feathers out. Doesn't go up over the ankle, doesn't go down over the feet because it's a number 6 band. And when you just know through the ears, An important part is your left hand. You don't want to snap that leg, so you have to be steady with your left hand. You don't want to drink too much coffee before you come out. And get it in, roll it around one more time, and then seal it. The bird's banded forever. So now, we come in here next year, catch this bird. We can check our records. We've got a little history on it. Now, come over here, Jen, please. So that's 614, Ann, and I'll give you some information. There's a couple standard measurements that we take, and one's the tail, and the other's the wing chord. And the chord is just, you know, the chord of a circle. It's just the arc within a circle. And so there's a natural little bend to the wing here, and eventually it would make a circle. This is just the arc of it. So anyhow, I'm going to measure this from the little bend of the wing as naturally as I can. You probably won't see much of it when I do it. I come up, Jen. And lean it backwards. 287. And we do everything, you know, metric, so millimeters. That's 287. Then I'm going to, and it's just pretty standard, I'm going to turn around here and just lean it forward and come up a little. And what I'll do is grab the tail, I go underneath the tail. And it doesn't matter, there's a couple different ways to do it, but as long as you're consistent, that's all that matters. I'll lay the tail down, run it across 151. Let's see here. Turn the bird around to the people here. Now, I don't know if you can see this. It'll be difficult. But, you know, people talk that, you know, tell you that birds have a preen gland or uropygial gland. You see that little gland there? That's the preen gland. And it's something like a duck. It's really large because they get lipids out of there, and it helps in feather protection, helps in buoyancy, etc., maybe even some ectoparasite function. But it's just a little bilobe sebaceous gland there, and the bird will reach back and they'll pull oil off it, and then they'll just apply it to their feathers. Now the feathers are totally inert. Once they grow in, they're not alive. You just have to maintain them and keep them in shape.
Do they molt?
Excuse me?
Do the owls molt?
Do they molt? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Yes. They do molt. They have a post-breeding molt. And so let's say males tend to molt or later than females. So females molt earlier than males. And that may be something to do with parental care. Females molt, and then they take off. Males finish, and then they molt a little later. But they usually molt post-breeding. So the molt may start in June and continue through October, and there's a little variation either way. But by October, November, all the birds have their new complement of feathers in, and then every year they just replace some and or all the feathers, and that gets really complicated. But one way, let's just take a peek here. We're going to call this... All right, it has one generation of feathers, and some birds that molt, you'll have 2 generations of feathers, and we can just look at that. Turn it around this way. Thanks, Jen. And you'll look at a whole feather, and these will be all light brown, and these will be dark brown, and these will be light brown, and these will be dark brown. So you have old feathers from the previous year with new feathers from this year's molt. And that seems to vary, but it looks like in high food years, where there's a lot, food is real abundant, they tend to molt more of their feathers. We've had very few birds this year that have had 2 generations of feathers. But, all right, it has 1 generation of feathers. How do we know it's not a young of the year that has its first generation of feathers? And so there is another clue that we look for, and turn it back around and lean it back a little bit here. And we look underneath here. Oh, yeah, this couldn't have worked out any better. Let's do it in the light. You see this little pink right here? Okay. No, it's not going to work. Anyhow, there is this little pink wash right in here. Only adults get that pink wash after they molt a new feather. So now we know that it had one, it's got 1 generation of feathers. Adult or young, we're not sure yet. We look under here, has pinkish wash. Young don't have that, definitely an adult. How far can we go from there? I can't tell you. We're looking at some techniques and evaluating something this guy wrote on aging them up to 3 years. And with known banded birds that we band as nestlings that we capture sometimes in the winter, we're trying to evaluate that. So anyhow, we have an AHY bird, or after hatch year, after second year.
Sex?
Sex? Sexy long-eared owls is supposed to be, you can't do it. You know, owls generally, there's no color dimorphism in most species, so the sexes look alike. However, you know, there's a snowy owl male, adult male is white, and a female is speckled white. Barn owls, females tend to be a little more rusty with a lot of spots, males are lighter with fewer spots. Long-eared owls, they say you can't do it, but we can. So, what we did is we took a soil color chart. So the soils around you here that, you know, soil scientists use to grade and score colors, we started during the breeding season where we know that females, only females develop a brood patch, only females incubate and brood the young, and males provide food. And so we know the sex because we have that bird in hand and she's got a brood patch. Males do not do that in owls. In other birds they may. Just depends on the species. So we took, knowing that, we took known sex birds, we scored, and we noticed this early on that there were differences in the color. We scored the facial disc, the tarsus, and then lean it back, and the wing lining, which is this area right here on this chart. And what we found was absolutely no overlap at all, highly, you know, statistically significant differences. Males tend to fall out in this range here, females tend to fall out in this range here. And when we try different people doing it for the first time, you may be off. Like I may say it's this color and you may say it's that color. Or you may say it's this color and you may say it's that color. But what you won't do is you won't go from here to here. You know, you're going to either call, there's no overlap here. No matter how many people we use, they all stay in this range. One person doesn't drop down here. You don't miss the color that much. And we just had one of the students present it at a conference. Everybody's out trying to use it now. And to see if we can do it. So now what we're doing during this time of the year, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'd say that's a male. And we predict what sex it is right now, and then when we catch them when they breed, hopefully they stay around and breed, and we'll see what our predictions. And we only have a small sample now. We started it last year predicting about 10 birds, but we even right every time. So that's...
So there really is a dimorphism, but it's very, very...
Yeah, and it's just like, well, you know, it's just one of those things that you have someone who works on something a long time, so they know it so intimately, and they just kind of figure it out. It's not a real big deal, but nonetheless interesting.
Oh yeah, well, important to be able to set them.
Okay, you know, we like to be real lightweight, you know, like the cavalry, and so we can get in and out of places, and it's just very simple. We're going to put this sock over the bird and weigh it, and minus the sock weight, and we'll tell you how much it weighs. How much do you think this bird weighs? That's beautiful. Any idea what this bird weighs? You saw how big they are flying around? 12 ounces, so we're going to convert that, right? So let's just say 30, and you can convert it. All right, 28 grams to an ounce. Okay. Okay, here you go. Yeah, give me your hand, please, over the back.
Is that?
Yeah, just hold it. Okay, and take away Jen, you hang in there. All right, thanks.
Look.
Keep hanging there.
You blame me?
And then lean forward a little. Slowly. You're welcome. That's how you do it.
They're really very docile.
Isn't that awesome?
324 minus the sock.
Saturday on the colors. I think it's pressure from environmental years.
All right. What we've also learned, and in most owl species, females are larger than males, and you guys can debate why that is, but our males, all right, so what do we got in?
Got 283.
283 grams. So what, 454 point something to a pound. So go for 283 grams. Males during the breeding season tend to weigh about 270, 275 grams, with the variations from 225 to about 290. Females during the breeding season weigh generally 320, 340 or more. They're quite a bit larger and darker. So anyhow, not only does the plumage work, but the weight seems to fall in. But weight can vary. You know, if it ate a 30
Yeah.
gram mouse, half an hour ago before we caught it, you could get the influence there. So that's why multiple captures over time. And we'll capture this bird again, and we'll take all the measurements again, we'll take the weight again, then we'll have paired samples, and then we can be able to compare ourselves to see how accurate we are from time to time.
Come on, get up there.
If you want them to look at you, just shuffle your feet a little bit. Maybe
Let them get through. They get to get this picture.
Yeah, it's because he's going to give you.
Did they smile?
This is a first for us, this taking an Audubon group out.
It's turned out really quite successful. Hey, super. Okay. Are you a member?
Look at
And
us.
when these owls leave, they'll go back into that roost, and
That's
we'll
super.
come back
Wasn't it?
next week. Maybe some will be here, maybe some won't, but I assure you it's not going to cause them to abandon the area. Just because we've done it for so many years.
How'd you hear about it?
We try to check our roosts once a week, and we try to get as many birds banded in the roost as we can before the breeding season starts, and then we can find out. Because right now we're working on a plumage, a sexing scheme on plumages, so we're predicting sex, and then we're going to see when we catch them during the breeding season if our predictions are correct. And so far they've been correct. No. What's that? Oh, the work? Yeah, this is year-round. We're in the field. We're one of the few groups of people in biology that actually go outside. Okay, when Jim releases this bird, what I want you to get out of it, and I want you to be everyone really quiet, even though it's going to be difficult, but get an idea for the slow-month silent flight. Get an idea for that low wing loading, which I told you about, which means that they can fly really slow. You've got that body mass divided by that high surface area of the wing, and the agility. And if you think an owl can't see by day, then you've never chased one through that stuff. And they've got great eyesight by day as well as by night. Okay, all right, just let them go. No, not yet. Look at the maneuver. Isn't this great? Is that cool? Before they go out the trail. Okay, here's the last one.
I just read about this.
Isn't that amazing? Okay. Well, I hope it wasn't too cold. Thank you. All right, thanks, Audubon. Appreciate it. Denver. Thank my crew.
How is this area going to be protected for us not to come back?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Don't ever come back. Okay, we'll get another shot of you. You know what? If you put this on the cover or something, I want a credit for the photo. And be quiet, and you won't hit it. Okay. Cool. Hey, well that's it.
The raptors of the Rockies are injured birds that have been poached and other wounding situations. Kate here has taken in these wounded birds. WWPI, Worldwide Peregrine Interviewers. Here I am at the Rocky Mountain Owl Singing Contest.
All the best owl vocalists from around the Rocky Mountain area are going beak to beak to try to win the Bitterroot Great Horned Owl Trophy. Here we go to our first contestant, Miles, the Great Horned Owl, who has won due to mysterious croaking noises coming from his other competitors.
I am Miles, the best. I have won all the trophies every year for my excellent singing. After all, I am named after the famous jazz musician.
As you can hear, Graham is warming up. What do you think about the mysterious croaking noises?
I know nothing of the sort. They always sound like that.
Thank you for your time. Now we go to .com, the smallest owl. He is just over 6 inches long and weighs about as much as 10 quarters. Hey, .com, what do you think about the mysterious croaking sounds?
I think it's Miles. He's somehow sabotaging our throats.
Oops, that's the whistle. Gotta go. This is Graham. It seems like someone has sabotaged his throat. I've got to get to the bottom of this.
I know how I can help. I can disguise you as another owl. Here goes.
Wow, I feel weird as an owl.
Go to Miles' cage and get some inside information.
Hello, Miles. How did your plan go?
Yes, my plan worked like all the other years. Perfectly.
Aha! Thank you for your confession, Miles.
What? No! How did this happen?
I can't see. What is she doing? Can you get this on camera?
Yeah, it's on camera.
Should I just try and get her off?
Yeah, you can just pick her up.
She's okay.
How are we gonna get her off? Come on. It doesn't matter. She probably should.
Talking.
We began Raptors of the Rockies 15 years ago, and we got our nonprofit actually just a few years ago. But it started in Clinton, and we've been here in Florence for just over a year. The way I actually started doing bird and mammal rehabilitation when I was 13 years old with the Cincinnati Zoo. And we moved to a ranch, my husband and I moved to a ranch back in '88 and in Clinton, and I realized that we could actually start another facility there. The first birds I got in were not releasable, so they joined the program. Bobo was the first bird we got in back in '88. All the birds that are here have permanent injuries and they can't be released back to the wild. They all came in as rehabilitation birds and now are used for education. With the exception of 2 birds, this one included, that are on my falconry permit, and these are ones that are captive bred. These birds are all fed every day, every morning. When it's this hot out, I feed the owls at night, the nocturnal owls at night, but the rest of the birds I feed before it gets hot, first thing in the morning. And I thaw out meat, mice, like game meat or heart meat, mice, chickens, quail, and go around and feed each one of these. They all have specific diets and specific requirements. All the buildings are 16 by 8 by 8 feet and have shade cloth and padded perches and baths. and a nice substrate underneath that's easy to keep clean. The examples for specific requirements for birds, the harrier, for example, harriers don't roost in trees, and so her building has posts with padded perches to simulate fence posts. Plus she has a little nest in the corner. She roosts on the ground. The gyrfalcon has probably the strictest requirements because it's an Arctic bird and this is truly hot, 100-degree heat. So the gyrfalcon has, the first thing we put up was shade cloth and then a fan in the corner that runs all day on a timer. We put 2 reflective space blankets on the roof. I put 5-inch R-board insulation in the ceiling, and the last thing we did is we put in a drip water misting system that sprays water and evaporative process cools the building down. The one that really likes the heat is the Harris's hawk, and so she sits in the sun all day pretty much. In the winter we have a heated perch and a heated lamp, a heat lamp, and they're actually a 100-watt light bulb that keeps her warm. When we determine that these birds have recovered from their injuries and are comfortable meaning they eat, they bathe, they preen, they aren't fighting being in captivity, then we take them on the Pea Green Boat, which is a children's radio show. That's always our debut program. Dulcie will go on there soon. These birds are added to the possession permit, and so it's listed 2 great horned owls, 1 northern pygmy owl, 1 saw-whet owl. So once they're listed on the permit, then we use them for at least 12 programs a year. And I do between 70 and 80 programs in the area, mostly to schools. About 3/4 of them are for schools. Not all of the birds that come in on rehabilitation license are suited for programs. Some of them just do not want to be in captivity, and we've had to euthanize a few of them over the years that we thought would be a good species to have, a ferruginous hawk, a goshawk, for example, but they just were too aggressive and fought captivity quite a bit. These birds are content, and they're doing a world of good as educators. This program has been seen by around 65,000 people. Basically, we want folks to go outside and observe nature firsthand. I'd like to think that we inspire some interest in birds and birds of prey specifically, but generally what our goal is to have people go out and notice things out of doors more than they did before.
Who is this bird?
This is Gunner, the gyrfalcon. This is a white color phase of a gyrfalcon. This is a male, so they call them jerkins.
How did he become vision impaired?
He has a developmental problem, like a deformity is what I think, and he can't see very well out of his right eye, so when he tries to fly he holds his legs out like landing gear, and he kind of runs around the yard. I let him out every evening, and he will hang around the edges of the house because this is where he was raised. He's 1 year old right now. You can see his adult feathers are these black ones, and his juvenile feathers, his youngster feathers, are these ones that are kind of gray. So as an adult, he will lose the streaks in the front. He'll be black and white. His feet will be bright yellow, and his eye ring and his cere, which is this skin over his beak, will be bright yellow as well.
Is it likely for all gyrfalcons to get this?
This bird is captive bred, raised by a man in Wyoming, and this is the first time he's ever come across this problem in all his years of breeding. So this is a rarity. Normally this bird would be euthanized or put to sleep because it can't be used for falconry. But he heard about this program, Raptors of the Rockies, and shipped Gunner up on an airplane last year when he was still a downy baby. So we didn't know if he'd be good for programs or not, but he's worked out very well.
What are the distinguishing features of harrier hawks?
Well, all the harriers, this species lives worldwide, all have this facial disc or ruff around their eyes. So it gives them that owl-like appearance, and they hunt using their hearing quite a bit more than most other hawks. They also have these really long legs, and they have a white at the base of the tail, which is actually the upper tail coverts. See that? They have these really long wings, and they have a real buoyant flight. They fly with their wings in a little dihedral, like a little V. And they're open country. They nest on the ground.
Can you tell how old she is by those features?
The young birds, the first-year birds, all look like females. They're all brown and streaked like this, so they blend into the grass very well. Then the males turn gray with black wingtips, and the females lose the streaks a little bit, but they look pretty close. And then Mika has just gotten the yellow iris, or the orange iris of an adult female, that just in the last several months, and she's 3 years old right now.
Where can these birds be found?
These are open country. They used to call them marsh hawks. So you think of marshes, open country, kind of scouring the ground for voles or amphibians or reptiles or little birds even. They'll eat just about anything. They don't roost in trees, but you'll see them hanging out on telephone or on fence posts a lot, standing on tops of fences.
Today was a day of crime and punishment. A pretty quail walked into my office one day. She said her husband was missing. I didn't want to check the case, but like I had a choice, and the agency had to.
Bum ba bum bum ba bum bum ba bum ba bum ba bum.
The name is Bird Tracy. I went downtown to visit an old friend of mine in the Slammer. Check 1, 2.
What are you doing here, Tracy? See?
The quail knows, but the quail is dead.
I don't know what you're talking about, see?
Why are you eating the quail, then?
This quail just stopped by for lunch, see?
I know, because you're having him for lunch.
Let me finish my lunch, Tracy, see?
Someone must have gave him the quail.
This quail's great.
While I sat there watching him eating that disgusting meal, I thought the eagles knew something.
What up, brother?
Wicka, wicka, wicka. Check 3-4. Hello, Eagle. Oh, hey, Stacy. Tracy. Okay, Macy. Whatever. Do you know anything about the kippered quail?
Bum, bum, bum.
I don't know anything, but I may know someone who does. Her name is Kate. Can you give me some birdseed? Kate who? Kate Davis. Now can I have my birdseed? Thank you. You've been helpful. What about my birdseed? I need birdseed. Come on. He's gonna pop. Birdseed! My partner went uptown to ask Kate Davis a couple of routine questions. It started out well, went bad, and got a lot worse. Check 5-6. Where have you seen this?
All in this front 5 acres and in that back 5 acres, usually at night.
Has there ever been any weird noises?
Weird noises all night long from about 1 in the morning till just before dawn.
Any specific suspicious things?
Lots of this sound.
You have a good hunch who did it?
I think it was the owls.
I decided to interview the owl. Please state your name for the record. Who? You two. Who? You and you. Who? Whatever. Don't wink at me. What do you know about the
Dun 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 dun.
kippered quail? Who? The kippered quail, you know. Who? Don't wink at me. It's obvious they weren't talking. I decided to put this file in unsolved and take a well-deserved nap. All right, Eagle, go ahead.
My name is Eagle, and I'm addicted to birdseed.
Hi, Eagle. That wasn't important right now. But what is kick it.
Fell down, it smashed the fence. I went and drove around there the other day. There's just junk laying everywhere. It's totally trashed.
I went up
All the way up to the road and all the way back into the
that fence right there.
that fence over 10 acres. And then right down there's a slough. What is that? Osprey.
Hey,
You have some shorts?
Just roll up your
Want to
pants.
borrow mine? No. We're going to go down to the river. Everybody quiet. Ron can get the shot.
Sure is that?
maybe we could at least get him talking.